Hello and welcome to the final explainer in our Class 9th Economics series. Last time we tackled the challenge of poverty. Today, we're diving into a topic that's directly connected to it, something absolutely crucial: food security. So the first big question we have to ask is this: why is food security, making sure everyone has enough to eat, such a massive national priority? To really get the answer, we need to turn back the clock and look at a pretty painful chapter in our history.
Take a look at this number, 30 lakh, or 3 million. Just let that sink in for a moment, and I want you to hold on to that number because it's so much more than just a statistic. That's the number of people who died in the Bengal famine of 1943. It was a tragedy on an unimaginable scale, and it taught independent India a lesson it could never, ever forget. Food security isn't just some economic theory in a textbook, it's literally a matter of life and death.
So, with that historical context in mind, let's break down what we actually mean when we talk about food security.
The official definition is right here. Food security means the availability, accessibility, and affordability of food for all people at all times. And as you can see, those three words are the key pillars: availability, accessibility, and affordability.
These three pillars are the very foundation of food security. First up is availability. That just means having enough food in the country, whether through production, imports, or existing stocks. Then there's accessibility, which means that food has to be within reach of every single person. And finally, and this is so important, we have affordability. This means people actually have enough money to buy sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their needs.
All right, let's circle back to that devastating famine of 1943. Understanding what happened there is absolutely critical, because it's the event that shaped India's entire food policy after independence.
Now have a look at this table. It shows the rice production in Bengal from 1938 to 1943. And what's really striking here is that in 1943, the year of the famine, production was actually 76 lakh tons. That's more than it was in 1941. So what gives? How could such a massive famine happen? It makes it crystal clear that the problem wasn't just availability. The real issue was a catastrophic failure of accessibility. The food was there, but people simply couldn't get to it.
The Ncert textbook calls it the most devastating famine. And for good reason. It's a chapter in our history that taught us a hard lesson. Just growing enough grain isn't enough. Getting it to every single person who needs it is just as, if not more, important.
And it's from this very lesson that India's food security system was born. It was a massive, systematic response designed to ensure a tragedy like the Bengal famine would never happen again.
This system really has two core components. First, you have the buffer stock, which is basically a reserve of food grains that the government procures and stores. And second, you have the public distribution system, or PDS. That's the network that actually delivers these grains to the people who need them most. So let's dig into each of these a little bit deeper.
Okay, so the buffer stock. This is managed by the Food Corporation of India, or the FCI. What the FCI does is it buys surplus grains from farmers at a pre-announced price, which is called the minimum support price, or MSP. Think of the MSP as a safety net for farmers, protecting them from a sudden crash in prices. This procured stock is then used to stabilize prices in the market and, crucially, to distribute food during emergencies or in areas with shortages.
Now for the PDS, the public distribution system. This is the vast network of what we commonly call ration shops, or fair price shops. Through these shops, people with a ration card can get essential items like food grains, sugar, and kerosene at a price that's lower than the market rate. This is called the issue price. Essentially, the PDS is the consumer-facing part of the whole food security system. The PDS is a huge system, right? So to make it even more effective, the government has launched specific schemes designed to target the people who are the most vulnerable and need the support the most.
And that really is the main challenge. You see, poverty isn't monolithic. It has many layers. Even within a broad system like the PDS, the real goal is to make sure that help reaches the absolute most vulnerable, what is often called the poorest of the poor.
A perfect example of this is the Antyodaya Anna Yojana, or AAY. This scheme specifically targets the poorest of the poor. Under AAY, identified families receive food grains at highly subsidized rates, making it one of the most targeted welfare schemes we have.
So we've looked at India's food security system and why it's so vital. But what about the road ahead? What are the challenges we face now, and what does the future hold? Let's spend a moment thinking about that.
All right, let's quickly recap what we've covered with a couple of questions to check your understanding. First up, what are the two main components of India's food security system? If you said buffer stock and the public distribution system, you're absolutely right. And the next question is about a really important term, especially for those of you preparing for exams. What exactly is the minimum support price, or MSP? Remember, it's that pre-announced price at which the government, through the FCI, purchases crops from farmers.
And finally, as we wrap up this explainer, here's something for you to think about. The system we built after independence is still incredibly important. But looking ahead, we're facing new challenges, right? Things like climate change affecting agriculture, and even changing dietary patterns among the population. So the big question is, how can India's food security system adapt to meet these future challenges? It's a critical question to consider. Thanks for joining me.